Hey there, and welcome back to the Stay at Home Detectives podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Sam.
And today we have a very special video episode for you all. We're covering the case of Stacey Colbert. In 1998, Stacey Colbert went missing from her Columbus, Ohio apartment. 6 years later, on November 27th, 2004, her remains were found. We're partnering with Finishing Stacey's Fight for today's case coverage. Finishing Stacey's Fight consists of Stacey's friends, family, and the local public that have come together to not only bring awareness to Stacey's case, but to bring justice for her murder. So join us as Sam and I dive into the details of Stacey's case in hopes to bring not only closure to the family, but justice for Stacey. The monster lurking in the shadows who is responsible for Stacey's murder is still out there, and we need your help to spread awareness for this case so he can finally be held accountable for his actions.
Stacey was a beautiful, confident, ambitious, and smart woman. She was a huge fan of Ohio State football and would purchase season tickets with her sorority sisters and never passed up the opportunity to cheer on her beloved Buckeyes. After getting to speak to one of Stacey's closest friends and former sorority sister, Paula, I was able to learn some fun facts about Stacey. Even though she loved Buckeyes football so much, she didn't understand the game. Her roommate spent most of the games explaining to Stacey what was happening on the field. But she never missed a beat to spend quality times with her girlfriends. Danielle and Stacey were raised in Charleston, Illinois, with their parents, Larry and Rana. It's a very small town, Danielle told Dateline. You went to the park, you went to the movies, you went to the mall. There wasn't really a lot of things outside of that. The sisters, who were only a little over 2 years apart, had each other. Danielle told Dateline they were as close as they can be, and they had a very special bond. We went to the same high school together, the same elementary school together. Stacey was more of a sports girl. She was into tennis and things like that. Danielle was more into theater and show choir.
Stacey landed an amazing internship with McDonald's at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta at the age of 21. She was full of dreams, life, and had energy that was contagious. Stacey was a marketing student at Ohio State University and graduated in 1998. She met the love of her life around 1997, but it had fallen apart. She did casually date after that, but there was nothing serious. Stacey didn't let that stop her dreams. At the age of 23, she had her own apartment, a brand new job as a marketing assistant at American Electric and Power, and she had adopted the sweetest kitten, which was her life and her baby, which she named Boots. Stacey's sister Danielle told Dateline that she absolutely loved her job. Everything at that time was good in her life. However, on March 22, 1998, everything changed. According to an incident report provided to Dateline by the Columbus Police Department, at 4 a.m. on March 22nd, neighbors directly above Stacey's apartment heard screaming coming from below them. The neighbors told detectives that they couldn't go back to sleep, and that it sounded like someone was in trouble. Later that day, around 2 p.m., the neighbors went to check in on Stacey. The incident report said that the neighbor knocked on Stacey's door but got no answer. There was also reports of Boots being seen outside of the apartment, which was not like Stacey at all. She would never let him out of the apartment because she lived by such a busy road. Even if she was out for a night with friends, she would always make time to take care of Boots first. Danielle told Dateline she tried calling her sister the next day, March 23rd. The 70th Academy Awards had just aired, and Danielle said she was excited to discuss the show with Stacey. The last movie we saw together was Titanic. We disagreed about what the meaning behind the ending was, Danielle said. That year, Titanic was up for 11 awards. I was calling, leaving a bunch of Oscar-related messages on the voicemail. Stacey never called her sister back.
Danielle wasn't initially alarmed because Stacey was supposed to be traveling to New York for work, so she thought she was just traveling, and that's why she didn't return her phone call or answer. On Monday, Stacey didn't show up for work. Stacey had a new boss who happened to be on vacation during this time. Her coworkers assumed that she was just sick. Come Wednesday, Stacey's coworker Molly became increasingly worried when there were still no traces of Stacey at work. Molly hunted down Stacey's new boss, but there were no voicemails left from Stacey calling in sick. But when Molly called Danielle, who was her emergency contact at work the next day, she realized that wasn't the reason why Stacey hadn't called her back. Danielle told Dateline, "I just could not fathom any possibility where she wouldn't show up for work. She was probably one of the hardest working people I've ever met." Danielle rushed to her sister's apartment. "I called my parents and I said I was going over to her apartment. When Danielle arrived, Stacey's car was there. Her purse was there along with all of her money and credit cards. But Stacey was nowhere to be found. The apartment reeked of bleach. Danielle immediately calls the police without any hesitation. According to the incident report, detectives surveyed the scene at Stacey's apartment. There were no signs of any forced entry. There was a boot print on the inside of the door. Along with all of her belongings, they found a box of mostly uneaten breadsticks on the counter. The receipt with the box, according to the report, was dated March 21st, 1998 at 5:58 p.m. Stacey was supposed to go out that night, but she wasn't feeling well and she decided to stay in. Police are convinced someone she knew was with her in her apartment around 2 to 3 a.m. In those wee hours of the morning, someone that she knew well enough to let them in.
Detectives spoke to the person who delivered the breadsticks to Stacey's home that evening. According to Sergeant Bessinger, he was one of the last people to see Stacey alive. He doesn't report seeing anything weird. He doesn't report seeing anyone with her, but he did feel that Stacey was not alone. He was just a young kid delivering pizzas, he said. But Stacey's friend Paula speculates that could have been because Stacey was on the phone and perhaps set the phone down and wanted to get back to her conversation after retrieving the breadsticks. Danielle told Dateline there were a lot of interviews. There were a lot of people looked at, from neighbors to coworkers, friends, her boyfriend, ex-boyfriends, roommates, ex-roommates. Everybody was considered a suspect. Danielle also told Dateline that she didn't know anyone who would have wanted to hurt her sister. "I don't know anyone who didn't, care about her," she said. "I can't think of anyone who would have wanted to hurt her. She was a light." Although the community was on edge following Stacey's disappearance, her sorority sister Paula told Dateline the threat of safety was the last thing on anyone's mind. They were so focused on Stacey, hoping that she would be located, there wasn't a lot of time to think of personal safety, Paula had said. The search for Stacey and who may have hurt her was on. Sorority sister Ashley Knott told Dateline that everyone came together to search for Stacey. "We would be out in the middle of the night putting up flyers," she said. "They weren't really sleeping." Stacey's employer, American Electric Power, was helping search as well. They were printing off flyers, printing thousands of them a day, trying to find her. They even held on to Stacey's job for months following her disappearance, hopeful that she would return. But unfortunately, Stacey never returned.
Danielle told Dateline, "I waited for that call. Is she going to be alive? Is she going to be dead?" 6 years went by. On November 27, 2004, Danielle got that call. A body had been found in the area. Although they thought it was older, I still got a really bad feeling when I heard it announced on the radio, Danielle remembered. "I got a call at work that a match had been made between her and the remains that were found in Delaware." Sergeant Bessinger told Dateline that a hunter looking for a lost dog found Stacey's remains on State Route 257 North in Delaware County, about 40 minutes away from where Stacey's apartment was. Due to the condition of Stacey's remains, the coroner was unable to determine her cause of death. Stacey's case was officially handed over to the Delaware County Sheriff's Office from the Columbus Police Department after her body was discovered in Delaware County. It has been speculated that Stacey's remains were outside for possibly 2 years, but they were not discovered until 2004. If her body had been placed in the desolate country in 2002, then where was her body from 1998 to 2002? For the record, Sergeant Bessinger has repeatedly stated that the belief is that her remains were there the entire time. 2 pieces of jewelry that Stacey always wore were missing, a ring and a Delta necklace from her sorority. Did this monster hold on to them? Where did they go? I got involved with it early on as a deputy, as far as being on the scene, Sergeant Bessinger told Dateline. Several years later, when I made detective, I was assigned to the cold case unit, and Stacey's case was one of them.
Bessinger said that since his office has taken over the investigation, they have examined and re-examined a slew of evidence. There were some things that were found later on in the search by the Columbus Police Department, he said. "We do have a piece of evidence in our possession at this point that's still being examined by the crime lab. Every year on, the DNA technology gets better." Bessinger said he believes he knows who may have killed Stacey, but added he just doesn't have all of the evidence needed to make an arrest, yet. I need to be able to convince 12 people that the person did it, he said, but I need more to charge them. That's the hardest part, is knowing somebody is responsible and not being able to do anything about it. He has vowed not to give up. I'm going to get him. I promise you I'm going to get him, Bessinger said. He's a monster, and this isn't something you do once, Bessinger told Dateline.
Whoever you are, whoever did this to Stacey, not only are you a coward, but you're a monster. How could you take such a sweet and precious life away?
You do not deserve to live a happy life after what you did to Stacey, you monster. We hope the guilt is eating you alive, and that soon you will be brought to justice for what you did to Stacey.
We can't have a monster like you roam this earth anymore. We just want to go over a couple updates from our conversation that we had with Paula, Stacey's friend. Stacey and Daniel's father, Larry, he died in 2007 without ever having any justice for a sweet little girl. That really breaks my heart right there, because I can't believe that. I'm trying not to cry.
I know.
I can't believe that this poor man never even had any justice for her.
Or closure, or knew what happened to her. God, that's devastating.
Their mother, Rana, she now lives in Arizona. It's very hard being in a place where something tragic has happened to your kids, Danielle told Dateline. Danielle said herself she just can't leave Ohio. Not yet, anyway. It's really hard to leave a place like that, where things were unresolved, she said, adding that it would also be hard to leave the Columbus community. They are incredibly loving and incredibly supportive when you're going through some really bad things. Stacey's memory will always live on through the community, her family and friends who loved her, the same ones who are still fighting for justice in her case.
Usually on her birthday, there's a memorial at the Fountain of Women at Ohio State. Danielle told Dateline that she has a cup of Highlander grog coffee and raises it in Stacey's honor. The neighbor from upstairs who heard screams that night passed away a couple of years ago. Even Sam and I still cannot wrap our heads around this. How do you hear screams at 4 a.m. coming from Stacey's apartment and never call the police?
This is one thing that really bothered me even during our conversation with Paula. When I spoke to Paula, I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that they literally said they had their ear to the floor and they heard horrific screams. But they never called the police.
Why would you not?
Maybe speculation, they could have had some problems with the law, with the police.
That's a possibility.
But you can call anonymously. You don't have to.
You can call anonymously. You don't have to give your information. But that just seems very, very strange that you wouldn't call the police. You clearly know something's wrong, especially if you have your ear to the floor.
And you hear screams that,
right.
Whether you think that they might be in a sexual type of manner or any other type of manner, a horrific scream like that at that time in the middle of the night should warrant some red flags that
right.
you should have called the police.
So the neighbor was cleared as a suspect after taking lie detector tests, but again, we just don't understand the thought process behind that. We can speculate all day. I think the issue too, that at least in certain cases I've seen or have come across where people hear something or they get information and they don't actually contact the authorities, there can be a lot of different reasons behind that. But I think people are genuinely scared at the same time. They fear for maybe their own safety or maybe uncertainty. And
it's not like they had to run down there and be the hero per se. You just needed to call.
Make a call.
That's it. Call 911. Call 911 anonymously.
Right.
I mean, I've had to call 911 before and they asked no information. I mean, it was when a transformer blew and a fire started, but it's not like they asked my name or they asked who I was. But in that situation, if I personally were in a situation where I heard horrific screams coming from my neighbor's apartment, I don't care if I had anything tying me into the law, I would make that anonymous phone call and call 911.
Yeah, absolutely, because that could save someone's life. Could you imagine if the neighbor did actually call the police?
I know.
Stacey may still have been here.
After doing the research on Stacey's case and the phone call with Paula and just thinking, it's what I like to do is think and overthink. I know that technology obviously was way different in the 90s than it is today, but I find it so odd too that this monster was able to get Stacey out of the apartment. Nobody saw him. Nobody saw her. And then he just goes and dumps her body where it lays for 6 years.
So I have a thought on that. I believe that it's possible that he killed Stacey in the apartment, and that's why he was able to leave the apartment with her body. However he did that, I don't know, but I can't imagine she was still alive, or maybe not conscious, we'll say. But you're right. Either way, how did he leave the apartment with Stacey in whatever state she was in at that time without anyone seeing? I mean, granted, it was very early morning hours, so I'm sure many people were sleeping, but there had to have been someone to see something or notice something about him. What we really want to stress here as well is if you happen to know anything about Stacey's case, whether it's something that you think is very small or minuscule, you don't think it's very important, make sure to reach out to the detectives. We will be sharing all of the information on how to contact them. We'll be sharing them in the show notes, in the description on YouTube. If you're watching this video podcast, we'll be leaving all the links, emails, phone numbers, everything you need to get in touch with the detectives currently working on this case. But please don't hesitate to reach out. That small, minute or minuscule detail that you think may not be important could be a game changer in this case in catching the monster who did this to Stacey.
And I do want to add, like Jen said, we're going to add everything in the show notes. As of summer of 2023, Sergeant Bessinger, he recently retired, and Captain Kevin Savage is who took over Stacey's case. So we will link all of his information in the show notes as well. And like Jen said, please, if there's anybody out there that knows anything about what happened to Stacey Colbert, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please don't hesitate to send an email, to make a phone call. Again, things can be anonymous, and especially today, we're in 2024. There's so many ways to make yourself anonymous now.
On behalf of Sam and I here at the Stay at Home Detectives podcast, our hearts go out to Stacey's friends, family, sorority sisters, and anyone who was touched by Stacey. To everyone who's tuning in today, we want to encourage you as well to go and follow Finishing Stacey's Fight. You can find them on Facebook and on Instagram. We'll make sure we leave their handles in the description box and in the show notes below. They also have a GoFundMe that you can donate to help them hire a private investigator. This will allow them to get more in depth, get more evidence that is needed, and bring the killer to justice. So we're going to wrap it up here today. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, and please make sure you help us bring awareness to Stacey's case. This is such a special episode for Sam and I, and we were so grateful to be able to work with Stacey's very dear friend, Paula. Paula, we want to thank you so much for working with us and helping us with this case coverage so we can assist you in bringing justice to Stacey.
We also have one more final message that we want to end the episode with. To the monster who did this to Stacey, yes, we're talking to you. Justice will be served, and you will be found.